Hey guys, Omni here. So last night I went and saw Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and I want to give you guys my quick thoughts on the film. I'm going to try to keep it nice and sweet. I know every time I say that, I just end up rambling for God knows how long, but we'll do our best here. Because I know with the leaks and the TV spots and all that, there's a lot of stuff you can get swept up into, and I don't want to accidentally trail off into anything that might be considered too spoilery that's not publicly known. So if you've managed to go the entire time without hitting any of those landmines, man, I don't want to be the person to trip you up. But I will say, I found this movie incredibly moving and beautiful. Is it perfect? No, I think there are some problems that I had with it, but my God, the movie is gorgeous. It is emotional. It is action-packed. It is thought-provoking, and it does the most important thing that it sets out to do, and that is honor T'Challa and Chadwick. And I think that is just the way they did it and incorporated it into the story is really well done. And I love seeing this because the title of the movie is Wakanda Forever. And a lot of our time is spent dealing with all of the denizens of Wakanda and how they've been processing this loss. How do they process this change, this loss of their king, of their friend, their brother, their lover, their son. It's just really, it's really heavy, man. It does. It gets real emotional real quick. And sometimes it'll just come out when you think you've kind of hit that, you've hit the peak and you've come down from it for a little while, and it'll just hit you right again with another powerful moment. This movie handles grief and loss really well, and seeing all the different people in T'Challa's life that are left behind in his absence, dealing with it in very different ways is really interesting to watch. And it really just adds so much depth to this world which was already just immensely deep with the culture in Wakanda and all of that. It's beautifully done, man. It's if this is sensitive subject matter like losing people that you love and whatever, you'll probably have a real hard time getting through this movie. And I gotta say though, it's beautiful. The way they handled it was tasteful. It was not egregious in any kind of way. I know some people thought it was a little predatory. I didn't get that. I can understand that, but I didn't feel that while watching the movie. I thought it was a true reverence for his life, and the way that they danced around that was really well done. Performances across the board are top-notch. Everybody is phenomenal in this movie. Angela Bassett, newsflash, fantastic actor. Who would have known? Letitia Wright, though, oh man, she blew me away in this movie, man. She had a lot to deal with. She had a lot to process, and she had some really, really hard scenes to get through. And it was just, she was really good in this, man. Of course, we have Lupita Nyong'o, who comes back. She's fantastic. We got Winston Duke, who's great. We've got Danai Gurira. Everybody has these tremendous emotional arcs that are just layered upon layered on how Wakanda is struggling to move forward in the wake of this tragic loss. Even Martin Freeman's Everett Ross, we're seeing how this shakeup is affecting him and his relationship with the Wakandans after everything that they've been through together, and the way that he's kind of their liaison to what is going on in the outside world is really interesting and handled so gracefully. We have newcomer Dominique Thorne playing Riri Williams, her introduction into the MCU prior to her series that is coming out, I think next year. If I'm wrong, I might be wrong on that. Coming up in the near future, her series Ironheart, she's introduced in this. She is quite the personality to interject into this. She was enjoyable. She doesn't get a terrible amount of screen time, but anytime she's on screen, she's just like chewing it up, man. I found her really endearing and really relatable in a lot of ways. And I like what they've done with her character. And I'm very curious to see what they do with her moving forward. And then, of course, we see in some of the primary trailers that a new enemy surface in a new country that rises from the depths, led by Tenoch Huerta's Namor. He is fantastic in this. I loved his character, and his introduction. I love the way that he is incorporated into the story. I love the way that they represent his powers into the action. And I love the way that they fleshed out and differentiated his world. It's just so beautifully done, man. And the comparisons, the way they compare and contrast these two nations, it's just really beautifully done. And the parallels that are drawn there are just chef's kiss. The action is so much fun. It's so energetic, and I really like how they brought a lot of that to life. The soundtrack is on point. I really love the soundtrack on this, and on top of that, the score is beautiful, man. Cinematography, beautiful. This movie had a lot on its shoulders. It has a lot to do. You know, it has to honor T'Challa, Chadwick, that whole legacy, address his loss, and put our characters into this place where they are in this vulnerable emotional state, as well as its country. We have to establish a major Marvel Comics character and his entire culture. We have to also we don't even have to. These are some things they did because it's what Marvel does, but I didn't think they needed to or should have done it in this movie. But there are some things that are sprinkled into this that are purely just to kind of follow up some threads that they've established in previous properties, than some things that are just here to set up future properties. Or it almost feels like, to me, because of the emotional importance and cultural importance of this movie, that maybe we could have lightened up on the future, the breadcrumbing throughout the movie, because at times it feels like there's some scenes that just don't necessarily fit. There's just some scenes that I feel like didn't need to be in this movie and detracted from what the story and the theme was really about. And I feel like the movie could have just been trimmed down a little bit to make sure that it stayed focused on some of those elements. And as like Marvel does what Marvel does, and that sometimes get lost in the setup of future projects of the next thing. And I think that's one of the minor things that kind of held up the movie. And it also at times felt like that maybe there was some scenes that were cut throughout this, because there's a couple of times where mid-conversation it would cut to another angle, and the responses, one scene in particular, there's a conversation being had that references a specific event, and the response on the opposite, when we switch to the other perspective, that they follow up didn't address the previous question at all. So there's a couple times like that throughout the movie where I was like, maybe they just had a lot on the cutting room floor, and it was just like, this was just a cut that slipped by or something like that. I don't know. The movie did start to feel its length after a time, but I still really enjoyed it. Definitely one of the better Marvel films in a long time, man. This movie was really rock solid in its execution, outside of some of those minor flaws that I mentioned. But guys, what did you think? How did you feel like it handled the legacy of Chadwick Boseman? How do you feel about the threads that is set up for later? How did you feel about the reveals? What was your thoughts on Wakanda Forever? Guys, sound off in the comments. Let me know your thoughts down below. We'll carry on the conversation after the video. Before we go, I want to shout out to channel legends: Manny Sherritt, Ryan Karen, Philly Vane, York, Coruscant, Margaret Grace, Melita, Robert Anguiano, Raven McCann, Jeffrey Hale, and M. Sephiroth. Thank you guys so much for continued support, and everybody who's been supporting the channel and helping us grow. Love you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody.